dad used to come to our club and work, and he's an ambitious fellow, and he had a lot of brains, lots of smarts, but he knew how to get a laugh too.
Sure. I never thought about that. Of course, I've never been a comedian. I never thought about how,
But I'm telling you, it's an aphrodisiac.
Okay.
There's nothing better than all of a sudden when you have the entire house with you, applauding and clapping.
Okay.
I mean, you lose all ability to even think reasonable. That's the reason when you get around show business people, especially in the mid-levels, like the comedy clubs and things like that,
sure,
egos are running wild.
Okay.
It's because they don't know how to deal with it. And I'm not saying I wasn't a victim either. I don't know.
Well, you had large audiences,
but
and I guess even on TV you have larger audience. Well.
Yeah, you're right. And
well, how did this affect?
And you run across television personality. I'm talking about local personalities now on television and radio disc jockeys, and they have the same problem with egos because they're there and they get phone calls and listeners and letters and you begin to believe there's a term in show business, believing your own press.
Okay. I would think the locals don't get as much anymore for the simple reason that many of these quote-unquote local shows, morning drives, etc., are done out of one studio in New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, and fed out to the many cities.
There's not many local shows anymore.
Right, because of the thing. One other thing while we're on this, we're going to do a little editing here, but it's kind of a serious thing. How do you see with these comics, Red Skelton, Red Fox, how do you see them compare with some of the later ones that you worked with, when you were in the comedy club business in the 80s?
Red Fox was here. I lived in a little town called Taft. I had a girlfriend or somebody over there. So in Muskogee, he was here a lot.
I didn't know that.
I ran across him in the grocery store a couple of times, and I think I interviewed him one time.
Okay. I thought you ran into him in Vegas.
Red Fox is at Roots, remember? He was a naughty comedian. He was X-rated.
Yeah, I know. I know.
And then, but here again, he just knew what sold. That's all.
Okay.
And I don't think you can downgrade his series at all.
No, he did very good work. In fact, he talked about when they started doing the show at NBC, they didn't even have proper dressing rooms for the actors. They had to change in the washroom.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, I guess they got some dressing room, but that just showed you how people were treated. And the Red Skeltons, the David wrote just hilarious stuff. And I remember listening to him once comment on, and he was talking about some of the 80s stuff, and this was even something on Archie Bunker, like this sound of the toilet, that kind of humor.
Uh-huh.
He just called it guttural humor. I mean, he didn't do that kind of trash. And he didn't. I mean,
well, that's one of the reasons I didn't stay in the comedy club business.
Okay.
Is that it got to the point where the only ones that got a lot of success, a lot of bookings, and a lot of things are the ones that used a bunch of four-letter words and a bunch of guttural comedy.
Sure.
I mean, talking about body movements and body parts, and that's the only thing you had to laugh.
Very sad indeed, Jerry, the state of things. So I guess in the minute we have left, finally.
Now, that's not to say that Red Skelton didn't do some raw humor occasionally, but he picked his audience when he did it.
Right.
That's not how he got successful.
Right. Yeah. But it was a little bit deeper than some of these characters, as you're saying, that just had the four-letter words. That's like some of the rap artists. Your friend who you followed and I guess interviewed many times, Ray Charles, had his take on rap. He thought nothing of it.
Yeah.
In his day, he said, well, anybody can make a rhyme up. I did that in grade school, and no doubt he did.
Right.
But it kind of shows you where the corporate people have taken entertainment, so-called entertainment, too. And, of course, they brought that to Fox News. And now we hear that as, when the political news and what have you is delivered, it's in the basic same format. You have a bunch of talking heads there that really aren't talking about the issues. They're just ranting and raving.
Right.
Sad.
I would like to be more optimistic about the state of the media. But, in fact, by now it should be. And, a lot of people think this is sour grapes and think, well, Jerry Pippin's now had it. He's laying in his bed here and he's got cancer and he's a bitter man. No, I don't think so. I think the problem is that we've sunk to a lower level each time. You go, it's pretty hard. It's like a sideshow at the carnival.
Sure.
You get, the strippers make the money, and some of the freaks, that's the ones that people go see.
That's right.
Run a legitimate thing on the carnival, a regular vaudeville show, you'd go broke.
Well, that evidently has happened to a lot of. You can look at some of the so-called movie presentations that come out of Hollywood. If it bleeds, it's on the screen, and that's just about it. So no doubt things go to very low levels, and even programs like
we're sinking to the lowest denominator.
That's right.
And we're talking about my comedy career, and I knew a lot of comedians, and they always, almost every comedian, and I've been guilty of it occasionally too. Occasionally, one of the interesting things about comedy is the psychology. If somehow the audience picks on something that maybe you're a little too nervous or you didn't do just that, they don't like it. So they don't watch you. So all of a sudden you lose your audience, and to get them back, you usually go to some sort of a cheap anatomy joke or something to get all of a sudden shock attention, and then you got them back. But I don't even know how much that works anymore.
Probably doesn't, because it's overdone. You remember when Howard Stern, a few of these so-called shock jocks, they had some character out of Dallas that called himself Dirty. I don't know what it was. But he'd be tamed today because you put so much of that. In fact, now what Stern and these characters did, you'll see that on Fox News on their political discussions, the same old scheme. They clean the language up just a little bit, but not very much. So you're right. It's low level candidates like Sarah Palin and some other characters they've dredged up and dredged out. We got rid of Michelle Bachmann finally. Before she perhaps goes to jail.
I have a theory on why this happened. It goes back to education, and they cut out the fine arts school.
True.
They cut out making you go into concerts and things like that. People just don't appreciate anything anymore.
That's true.
If it's not loud and on a boombox with a strong accent beat every third or fourth beat, and nobody wants to hear it.
Well, the boombox, Jerry, unfortunately has went out. Now you have these $100, $200 earphones that you can plug into your iPod or whatever kind of device you got.
Of death.
Yeah, I know. And it, beams into your two ears, and you can still hear it like a boombox, but it's actually into you and you going down the street. And not only that, you can now, with your mobile smartphone device, the same thing. You can be listening to your music, you can be watching a movie, or whatever else you want to do, and all at the same time driving down the street. Anyway, Jerry, it's nice talking to you. We'll edit this and get back to you a little bit later here. We'll air this, incidentally, tomorrow sometime.
Okay.
Good night.
think by now most of you know the opening theme of All in the Family, but I don't know if many of you have taken much notice of a very nice closing theme we have. And I didn't notice it for a couple of weeks after beginning my show, and then I did notice it, and I asked my friend Roger Kellaway, who composed the music, if I could have permission to do a lyric to it. And he said, fine. So I wrote the lyric to it, and the title of it is Remembering You, and it's our pleasure, Roger's and mine, to do this words and music for you tonight. Got a feeling it's all over now. All over now, we're through. And tomorrow I'll be lonesome, remembering you. Got a feeling the sun will be gone. The day will be long and blue, and tomorrow I'll be crying, remembering you. There's a faraway look in your eye when you try to pretend to me that everything is the same as it used to be. I see it's all over now. All over now, we're through. And tomorrow I can start in remembering you. There's a faraway look in your eye when you try to pretend to me that everything is the same as it used to be. I see it's all over now. All over now, we're through. And tomorrow I can start in remembering. Sad because we're parting, remembering. Consolate my heart in